Hi, I'm Maylee Zonda again, and I did kind of an update on my last video. I said I wanted to go back and cover some subjects that I had mentioned in it, and one of the things that I wanted to address in another video is what is it to have Asperger's? What does that word have mean? And I jotted down some notes, so I'm going to glance at them a little bit every now and then. What I wanted to bring out is that Asperger's identified what was already in existence forever. Asperger's isn't something new. It's always been there, just the way what we call typical people have always been there. Otherwise, who else would have been the pioneers in such things as alchemy? When I use the word have, Asperger's, the word have, I use it in the same sense as to have blue eyes or to have brown hair. I don't use it in the sense of have a cold or have cancer. Those are things that, we want to get rid of. You don't want to get rid of blue eyes or brown hair or blonde hair. Those are genetic things that we are born with and entitled to. Even someone with Down syndrome is entitled to have Down syndrome and to be accommodated. So a person who's typical, who can't do something that a person with that Asperger's can do, is entitled to be typical. And we don't want to make a distinction between one and the other, that one is less productive or less valuable in society than the other. And so what do we say about normal or typical people who label us with syndrome? And the people those normal and typical people display less ability in memory or classification skills or in musical ability. Do they have typical syndrome? Just because we think that they're deficient in these areas, we don't go around labeling people with these inappropriate, names, and they have just as much to answer for as a person who has Asperger's. And we don't just have Asperger's, but we are what Asperger identified. Really hasn't been given a name that I know of. He's not the founder of who we are. He's just kind of a person who discovered that there was a difference and made it public. But had he not even done that, maybe, not saying that Asperger people wouldn't get help that they need, but we could also focus a little bit on the typical people who aren't getting the help that they need to be functional in all areas to the degree that we are. Maybe they could use some help in some memory skills or some ability to classify or learn music. And maybe they're falling short. Maybe we need to turn that table around and give them a look, because they should not classify their own counterpart so derogatorily unless they themselves are willing to be up for some classification themselves. I kind of take high offense to that derogatory labeling, because they have pluses and they have minuses the same way people with Asperger's have it. And we have people who on our spectrum go as far as autism, but they have people who and these people with autism are like savants and things, and they can do these amazing things, and so can people with typical, but when they're too typical, they are just as dysfunctional as a person who has autism to the degree that they are having trouble functioning. And what I really want to mention is that I want people to start looking at people with Asperger's as the counterpart of what is typical. And I think that because, Asperger labeled us, like he didn't do it himself, but we got that label. We acquired that label, and it's not a bad label because he was a good man who did good work. But the thing is having a label in society is looked at as negative, and I think labels are things that cause divisions and um, and fuel. Uh, they fuel prejudices and feed people's minds who have the desire to be better than somebody else and look down on somebody else. So what I want people to think about really hard is that typical and Asperger are counterparts. It's the same as being a left-handed or a right-handed, as being a north or a south, as being an in and out, an up or a down. And, society can't live without us, just like we can't live without people who are typical. We are interdependent on each other, and for that one reason, that should bring us together. That should really bring us together and not cause these divisions that I hear about going around on YouTube, where people are, slamming people with Asperger's, and that can go both ways, and that's not what this is all about. What I really want to emphasize is that the body can't do one thing with just the left hand as well as it can with both a left and a right, and we need to be both left and right thinkers to get, to make progress. And if these typical people will recognize that people who have Asperger's are a huge cornerstone on a major foundation of human society, then they will stop pointing the finger, labeling us, trying to fix us, and maybe they'll even stop and realize that they have some flaws, that they need to stop and think about what they can do and what they can work on, because when both sides look at the negatives of themselves and work on fixing that, and not pointing the finger and not throwing labels, slapping labels on people's foreheads, then things get better. And a lot of trouble is wrong with this world because people are slapping labels on people's foreheads. And I just really was irritated after thinking about that the use of labels and the whole idea of the word have. That word have has more than one meaning, and the way that I intended it and the way that I hope other people will learn it and use it is a good thing and not a bad thing. And we're not looking for a cure. We want our place back in society, and we want to stop being labeled and stop being accused of as being something wrong with us. And the typical people have things just as wrong with them. This isn't a mental disorder, it's a mental difference, and they can't live without us. We contribute way too much to this world for them to live without us. And if they got rid of all of us, what would happen to science? What would happen to music? What would happen to all these amazing things that we contribute so much to? They think they can do it all by themselves? Let them try, because we're not looking for a cure. We don't want a cure. What we want is our rightful place in society. We want our acceptance. We want to be what we are, and we don't want to be told to look people in the eye if that really makes us feel uncomfortable. And, that should be accommodated in schools where children who have Asperger's, and and this law that they keep talking about getting kids tested before age of 3 because children display the most symptoms or signs or traits is what I like to call it, of Asperger's, takes place before 3 years old, and after that they start learning to cope and start learning to adapt because of teasing, because of ridicule, because of a lack of acceptance of who they are. And that's wrong. You don't tell a dark-skinned person to go change their skin color to be more accepted. And we think it's wrong these days, right? To teach children who are left-handed to be right-handed in school. We thought those were atrocious. And you know what? 1,000, not even 1,000, a couple hundred years from now, when we look back at the way that people with Asperger's were treated, they are going to think that that was harsh and unfair. And a lot of changes are going to be made. Might as well start making them now. So I am very opinionated on these type of issues. This is one that really touches my heart, and I really want to see the right things happen. I want to see people be accepted for who they are. And so before I make this thing too long and have a long time to wait for it to be uploaded, I'm going to shut my mouth and let you guys think about what I have to say, and maybe that'll be something that will embrace your heart as well. And we'll hope that more people will listen to these videos and think about things, and maybe they'll come up with some branches off of my thinking, and things will grow. That's what I want to see, is I want to see things grow for people who have autism and Asperger's, and I want our rightful place back in society. Thanks for listening.